What if you were being watched in your own Minecraft world, but not by another player or by a hacker, but by thousands of people watching you online? Everywhere you go, your every move is being monitored, and it's all broadcasted to this one website, mccams.org. Now, unfortunately, if you try to visit this site, it no longer exists. But I found the channel with detailed recordings and accounts from the website. So with that all out of the way, let's dive into the mystery of the player who was always being watched. The first video opens with some text on the screen, reading,
"Hey, so I found this weird website.
followed by,
I'm gonna look into it."
in the background we can see the website open on what looks like the homepage, featuring what seems to be 8 different images of in-game screenshots. Below every screenshot there's also an ID number, but we're not sure what these numbers indicate yet. Apart from that, we can see the website URL up the top, mccams.org, typed into the browser Safari. The video continues to say,
"If anything weird happens, I'll upload it, but for now, I'll look into some cameras."
before the video abruptly ends. This first video was incredibly short, but it gave us a good overview of the website and how it works. From what the person recording said last, we can assume that the screenshots down the bottom are cameras, each having an ID number attached to differentiate between them. Even though we didn't get a massive insight into the cameras from this first video, that all changes with the second video entitled Camera Found. The second video commences with the MC Cam site open again, with a camera open that seems to have been planted in a player's base. At the top of the site it reads Camera Live, seemingly indicating that we are currently watching a live feed. Directly under that text there's an ID number for the camera and how long the camera has been active, which is, in this instance, 14 hours. Nothing happens for the first minute of the video, just showing the static shot of the base and nothing more. But at the minute mark you can hear a player's footsteps approaching the base. And then they appear in view, walking over to their chest and opening it, likely depositing something into it. We can also assume this is night, as the player sleeps in the bed, but as soon as they wake up, the player seems to notice the camera, walking over and trying to break it as the feed cuts off. This is the first instance of a camera that we've seen so far, but now the question is, how did the camera manage to stay up for 14 hours without the player noticing? We are still yet to see what these cameras actually look like, so we have to assume that they must be hidden really well. After watching this video, I noticed some words out of the corner of my eye in the description. These words were obviously an encoded message of some sort that probably gave some clues on what this secret camera site is. I also noticed that in the description, the location is set as Caesar cipher, one of the most popular methods of encrypting phrases. So when I put these words in the description into a Caesar cipher decoder, it gave me, "Why do you keep trying to?" These words had no initial meaning and I assumed it was just a red herring, and then I thought to check the description of the first video. In this description there was a link to a paste bin, a well-known site for sharing long strings of text. When I opened it, I saw the title just had the word stop 5 times, and for the contents of this link it had another random jumble of words, which, when read backwards, gave me stop trying before it's too late. I was confused on what it wanted us to stop trying to do, as both of the decoded messages had been telling us to stop trying, but maybe the answer we need is in the next episode. Episode 3, Anomaly 1. Episode 3 starts with a camera showing what seems to be a villager trading hall, with a zombie in a boat in the middle and some shulker boxes scattered around. The runtime on this live feed is only 5 hours, which is short compared to how long the last one was. And the ID for this camera is 21538, which, if you remember, is the same ID from the second episode, possibly meaning that this is the same camera that has been put up in another spot, likely watching over the same player's base. Around 30 seconds into the video, the camera swaps to a different room, in what looks like the same base. But now there's a player in view, wearing full netherite armor and trading with villagers. You can tell it's the same base in both cameras by the repeating quartz and deep slate design, along with the villagers, meaning this player likely has multiple cameras set up in their base without their knowledge. And if you look really closely, you can notice that one of the villagers doesn't break eye contact with the camera the entire time it's shown, possibly indicating that this villager is onto something and might either know or have something to do with the cameras. After another 30 seconds, the POV of the camera switches again, showing the same room in a different perspective. The same villager is now staring at the new camera, not breaking eye contact at all while the player stands still, possibly AFK. The camera changes point of view again, after only about 10 seconds this time, and if you look really hard, you'll notice that the same villager is looking at the camera yet again. But it's really hard to notice unless you're looking at it directly. This solidifies the theory earlier that he might be onto something or have some sort of involvement in the setting up of the cameras. The player still stands AFK as the camera changes again, now showing an underground sugarcane farm with all of the crops fully grown. There doesn't seem to be anything at all in this shot, but if you notice something, leave it in the comment. We then see the camera swap back to the original POV, showing the zombie zombie in the boat and the villagers again, with the zombie staring directly into the camera, exactly like the villager was. Then the video ends, tying back to the title of the video, which is anomaly, meaning something that's different or unusual that should typically be normal, and it could possibly be referring to the villager and the zombie, as they were the only entities looking at the camera, making them anomalies. Aside from this discovery, there's also more words in the description, one that looks like another Caesar cipher, and one that just looks like a random string of letters. The cipher, when decoded, reads out, "You're running out of chances," relating back to the previous ciphers asking us why we kept trying. This other string of letters, however, took me a lot longer to figure out. After a couple hours, I came to the realization that it was the end of a YouTube link, and when I pasted it, it was an unlisted video titled Email, spanning only 3 seconds. The video shows multiple different screenshots of the same email, all incoming from the email MC Cams. The email subject is just "stop trying," and the contents is yet another cipher that, once decoded, translates to "you have to stop trying before it's too late. If you don't stop, we will find you and do anything it takes to get those videos never seen again." The email seems to be a message from the camera website, presumably telling the person recording to stop trying to upload their cameras onto the YouTube channel. The real reason though is why. Their website is a public domain anyone can access, and the only reason I could think of for why they wouldn't want just anyone to access it is to make sure the cameras stay up and that the player being watched never realizes what's going on. Unfortunately, there really isn't a lot of information we can get from this video, as it's so short, but where we can get that information is episode 4. Anomaly 2. The video opens with the exact same camera as the last video, Anomaly 1, but a few things have changed. The zombie in the boat has been moved across the room and now there's a red shulker box where there used to be only purple. The camera ID is the exact same as usual and the runtime is only 2 hours, presumably how long the player has been on the world for. The zombie is still staring into the camera exactly like it was before, never breaking contact once. The camera stays in this position for well over a minute, with nothing significant really occurring, until about a minute and a half in, when something crazy happens. The camera had changed to show a player's POV as we watched them harvest sugarcane in the farm we saw last episode. This is the first time we've seen the player be active in this base, as the previous episode they were seemingly AFK. After the player is done farming sugarcane, they replant some of it and then head into the next room, a little 3x3 room with shulker boxes for the floors. The player looks to the left for about a single second, where we can see an iron door with what looks like lava behind it, before looking back towards another hallway. But why would the player just have a room full of lava behind an iron door? They obviously can't go in there or they would die, so why does it even exist? Maybe we'll get more insight into this door in a future episode, but for now we can only theorize. The player turns down the other corridor and into the room where we saw the first camera, giving us a real look at the layout of the base and being able to put into perspective where every camera is. The player quickly exits the room and turns into their farmer villager room, which we also saw last episode, before the video cuts to the player staring into the camera in the first room as the footage starts to glitch out even more than it currently is. This is our first look into how the cameras look, and the real question is, how is the player never noticed until now? The combined uptime of the cameras from this episode and the one prior totals 7 hours, so how has the player never noticed these cameras after being in their base for 7 whole hours? The player attempts to break the camera, to which they are unsuccessful as it seems the cameras are indestructible. Then the video just ends. As per usual, there's another Caesar cipher in the description, and when you shift the letters 3 times, it reads,
"You're out of chances."
The video starts in the perspective of a player, where we can see they're in a plains biome near a village. The website looks slightly different though, as this camera doesn't have an ID, nor does it show the runtime, instead displaying the word redacted. The player seems to act as normal, just walking around and killing mobs for food. At around 10 seconds in, we see a house-like structure, presumably the player's new base after the previous ones were compromised by cameras. The player continues to walk around and kill mobs for another minute, before entering the house and grabbing coal from their chest to smelt the raw food they just got. Everything seems as normal, until the footage starts glitching out again as the player turns around to find a big security camera inside of their house. They attempt to break it and are met with the word error being spammed in chat in big red text. Then the video cuts to a shot of their house burning down. We can assume the player burnt down their own house, presumably due to the stress of finding cameras in every base they live in. Everywhere they go, the cameras seem to follow them, but we still don't know how they get in the player's base and who is behind it all. During the shot of the player's house burning down, we get a split-second shot which, when slowed down shows an image of the player's house before anything happened. I don't think there's anything visible in the image, but if I'm wrong, feel free to comment your observations. The video cuts back to the house burning, then the static shot of the house again. However, this image is different from the last, as we can see the yellow flowers that were in the distance turned blue. Then the video cuts back to the house burning and ends. There's a lot to take away from this video, one of the main ones being the flowers changing colour. If we go back to the normal video, we can see that the flowers are indeed yellow, so why did they end up changing to a light blue tint, and what does it mean? The video starts with the player in a desert temple, facing a chest with a mangrove sign on it. The sign isn't visible at all, but upon turning up the exposure we can make out the phrase, "For your travels, MC cams." It appears that the person recording got a gift from the secret camera website, maybe a sign of the fact that they have control over their world. The chest contains 53 oak planks and 32 cobblestone, an oddly specific number that we might need to remember for later. As the player opens the chest though, you can hear a piece of TNT light, which is not uncommon for a desert temple, even though the person recording isn't in the vault. The TNT blows up and causes a huge explosion, leaving the player with barely any health left. The player then takes a water stream to the surface to assess the damage, where we see that the explosion blew up the entire temple. The player then spots a pillager outpost on the other side of the desert and rushes towards it. While on their way though, they spot a deep cave, where they stop to craft some signs and continue on their way. The player then walks over to a desert well and places the sign directly in the middle, writing out the word help. We can assume that the perspective we're seeing right now is the player that's been reappearing in every camera, with the fact that he's lost in a desert asking for help indicating that he feels too scared to create a base, knowing how quickly cameras will be set up if he does. The player continues towards the pillager outpost, stopping again to place a sign reading, "Where am I?" But instead of the sign showing the message the player wrote, it displayed a different message, a message of random characters interchanging rapidly. The player breaks the sign and continues on their way, the theme of noticing weird stuff not stopping when they place down a sign 10 seconds later. This time it reads, "Is this torture?" which then again changed to the random characters from before. What we can gather from this is that it appears as if the player is in limbo, almost like the cameras have drove them literally insane, to the point where they have no clue where they are, like they wrote on the sign earlier. The player finally reached another pillager outpost, where he breaks in and goes upstairs to loot the chest. Another thing we can note is that there's no mobs spawning at all, and if you remember earlier, when the TNT exploded, the player healed up almost instantly. So now we know that the single player world is in peaceful mode. This information will definitely be useful later, so remember it. After looting the chest and the pillager outpost, the player pillars up onto the roof with sandstone blocks, placing down a crafting table and another sign, writing the word help again. As per usual, the sign turns to these random characters again. The player then places another sign and writes why, probably confused as to all the paranormal activity going on right now, from the weird chest at the start to the signs changing every time he writes on them. The player then goes to the edge of the outpost and bridges diagonally while a few minutes go by, only stopping when they literally ran out of blocks. At the end we can see the player was bridging towards a village, coming a few stacks of blocks short from reaching it. They then look at the village and stare up at the moon as the video ends. This video gave us a huge insight into how the player really feels about all the cameras set up around their world, showing us that it's obviously causing them some sort of paranoia and driving them clinically insane. The player also seems to be stuck in a never-ending limbo where they can't communicate with anyone, showing the need to use signs over the typical methods like chat. And my theory is that the camera website has this player wrapped around the palm of their hand. Episode 7 is a 9-second video, entitled chance.jar. This video just depicts another email again, similar to the unlisted video we saw before, though this time the subject is just the word escape, and the sender is listed as unknown. The contents of the email are just a few words, stating, "If you want to escape, end the night." And if we remember, the last episode ended with the player staring at the moon, as it wasn't moving in the sky, and the video was also 11 minutes long, while a Minecraft day is 20, meaning that we would have seen the daylight for at least 5 minutes before it turned night, because at the end of the video, the moon was directly above the player, meaning the night cycle was halfway finished. And if we go back to the second video, we can remember the player sleeping in the bed before waking up and finding the camera, meaning it was also night then. And during episode 5, the shot of the house burning down was also during the night time. But what is the significance of the night, and how can we end it in a world where time never changes? The video opens with the player walking into a desert village and entering a house. I'm going to assume that this village is the same one we saw at the end of episode 6, when the player ran out of blocks trying to get over to it. As we can see, it's still night outside and the time hasn't changed at all. As the player exits the house, they press the stone button above the blast furnace, which doesn't appear to do anything. He then walks over to another village house, and where there would normally be a bed, there was nothing. Just an empty space where the bed should be. Maybe it's just a bug, or maybe it's the camera website preventing him from ending the night, as we learned earlier that ending the night means escape. The player walks out of the house and music starts to play, but not normal Minecraft music or ambient sounds, but this creepy piano song. The player's movement seems to get more frantic upon hearing this, running in and out of houses likely looking for beds, until he enters this one particular house, with nothing inside except for decorations and a smoker. But when he exits the rear door, you can see these pigs with an unusual texture, making them appear more red than pink. After the players checked every single house and still can't find a bed, they place down a sign, writing, "Can anyone hear this?" This is probably referring to the creepy piano music, showing us that it's being played inside of Minecraft. Immediately after this, the screen starts glitching out again, as the player seems to get more frantic and starts jumping around. A string of letters pops up on the screen, then the video ends. These letters appear to be another YouTube URL, which, when entered into a browser, brings up a new video titled Announcement. This video depicts the MC Cam's homepage again, which we haven't seen since episode 1, although the site doesn't seem to have changed at all. The screen is still glitching out like the video prior, and the text reads, "Your plan won't work. Stop trying to escape. We have done everything to make sure you can't," followed by a long string of 1s and 0s. We now know that the camera website is aware of the player's attempts to escape, confirming they were the ones behind removing all the beds in that world. But the binary code we actually can't translate. Due to the way it's written, it's impossible to get an accurate translation of what it means. If you can work it out though, leave a comment with the answer. This unlisted video really doesn't help us out that much, unfortunately, as there's not many takeaways from it. So let's move on to episode 9, Watched. The video starts out with a low quality screenshot of the desert, likely the same one that the player's been in for the last 2 videos. The player isn't moving at all and there's not a lot to see in the video, until about 3 seconds in where we see this happen. We can see the outline of what looks like a player on the left hand side, but how can there be another player if they're in a single player world? It's likely that the camera site hacks into players' worlds, probably sending this mysterious player to set up the cameras and watch over the world, making sure that they stay up permanently. If our guesses are right, we've now solved the mystery of how the cameras are getting set up and who is behind it, as this mysterious player could not be there for any other reason. The glitch at the end of the video probably represented a conflict between the player and this mysterious figure, almost like the player had been caught. Episode 10 starts with the player in the same desert as normal, attempting to climb a mountain. At around 30 seconds in, we can hear another set of footsteps for a split second, showing that the player is not alone. The footsteps likely belong to the entity that we saw last video, which would tie into the title, which is Stalked. The player appears to notice the footsteps as they turn around and do a double take to make sure no one's there. The player continues to climb the mountain, and then the video cuts to them on top of a mesa hill, where they place down a sign and write, "Who was that?" But as they are typing, we hear this weird sound in the distance that isn't a part of the music. The sound appears to be 2 gunshots fired in succession, followed by a single one about a second later. The player then pauses and looks up as he notices something. We can now see another player about 50 blocks away, on top of a little hill. We only see this player for about a second before the screen goes black and the video ends. It's safe to assume that this mysterious figure is the same one from before, and that the footsteps definitely belonged to him. But why did the footage cut off suddenly, and why was the player losing hunger? In a previous episode of the same world, we saw the player was in peaceful difficulty, but the mysterious figure must have changed it as the player was now losing hunger, something that can't happen in peaceful mode. So now we wonder, what happened after the screen cut off? Did our player ever escape, or did he become the next victim of this website, living in this world and being watched forever?